Can you beat Mario and Luigi Brothership without dodging? The rules are simple. We are not allowed to use the A or B buttons to dodge or counter any enemy attacks on their turn. However, we are allowed to use the game's emergency guard to help protect ourselves. The challenge is complete once we defeat the final boss. Let's not waste any time and get right into it. The beginning tutorial area for the game is super simple and easy, even though we aren't given the option to emergency guard yet. Thankfully, the beginning tutorials for the game are just pop-up menus, so we can just pretend like we were never even given a tutorial for dodging and move on with our lives. Once Mario makes it onto Ship Island and reunites with Luigi, we can head off to our first proper area of the game, Rumble Island. Within just a few seconds of reaching Rumble Island, we are forced into a mandatory battle with some guard arms. However, we now have access to the emergency guard, and with it we are already taking only 1 point of damage from enemies. With that battle, we gain our first level up, and it's going to be very important that we try to keep our level as high as possible so that we can continue to take minimal damage from enemies. In order to do this, I will pretty much be fighting every enemy I come across on our journey to not only gain as much experience as possible, but also to gain a lot of money as fast as I can. If I can also gain as much money as possible, I will be able to continuously buy the best gear whenever we reach a new gear shop. This will help keep both my defense and offense high. We make it through all of Rumble Island with no issues and are now tasked with heading to either Twisty Island or Rainforest Island to get ourselves hammers made from Build It or Make It. Who we choose to make our hammers will open a shop on Ship Island a bit later in the game, and the decision we make here is very important as the two different shops will sell different pieces of gear. Build It specializes in gloves, while Make It specializes in accessories. For our mission, it is in our best interest that Make It opens the shop on Ship, as her exclusive accessories will be much more useful to us than Build It's exclusive gloves. So, off to Twisty Island we go. We make it to Twisty Island, and it is once again another cakewalk. Some of the enemies were hitting a bit hard at first, but I simply went and picked up some new gear, and all the enemies were hitting for 1 damage again. After we clear Twisty Island and get our new hammers, we then head off to Rainforest Island to connect it as well. It is in the middle of exploring Rainforest when a thought occurred to me. Hey, isn't there a challenge for avoiding or countering enemy attacks? I could definitely use it to help make sure I haven't made any mistakes in my run. Let's just take a look and... What? 4 dodges? When did I dodge 4 times? I feel like I would have noticed if I had dodged or countered an enemy 4 separate times. I took the time to look back at my footage so far, and I didn't see myself dodge or counter any enemy attack even once. Every time an enemy attacked, I just held down the emergency guard button. So what gives? I took a closer look at how each of the enemies I've encountered so far attacked, and I managed to figure out what the problem was. It's the Bumbleshoots on Twisty Island. The Bumbleshoot have 3 different ways in which they can attack. From above, from the right, and from the left. However, with their attack from the left, they actually miss the bros and end up soaring above their heads, not dealing any damage, and the game is counting this miss as a dodge. So what am I supposed to do then? I would already have to restart my save file if I wanted that number to stay at 0, and it's not like the Bumbleshoots are the only enemies that can miss the bros with an attack, so things could get rather tedious very quickly. I ended up asking some friends what I should do about my situation, and it ended up boiling down to this. The in-game tracker for dodging and countering is stupid. I didn't dodge the enemy's attack. I was sitting there waiting for the enemy to hit me, and their attack simply missed me. That's not my fault. I could just avoid the enemies that have attacks I can miss, but that would be lame and stupid. So for this challenge, we will not be using the in-game tracker for dodges and counters. We make it through all of Rainforest Island with no issues, and while backtracking to fight more enemies and explore new areas that have opened up, the bros reach level 8 and gain access to their first rank up bonus. These rank up bonuses are going to be very helpful to improving both of the bros' overall bulk. For our first bonus, I grab HP up plus for both bros so that they will have more HP for the rest of the game. After the backtracking, we are tasked with heading to Rumble Island to deal with Gorumbla, who is destroying everyone's art. I end up reaching level 9 along the way, and it's time for the first boss fight of the game. Being a boss, Gorumbla attacks us multiple times in a row, but since I picked up the picnic ware from the shop, each of his attacks only deal 1 point of damage with the emergency guard, so we're easily able to tank his hits. I had thought that maybe his combo attack would deal a decent bit of damage, but nope, only 1 damage for all 3 hits, even on Mario. During the fights, we get introduced to the Luigi logic during battle. Performing these attacks correctly will leave any bosses stunned, and they will not be able to attack us for a short time, so it's important that we perform these attacks correctly in order to keep our damage minimal. I feel this is necessary to bring up due to how some of the attacks are performed. In the Gorumbla fight, we need to launch a stone back that Gorumbla himself throws. It would seem that we would be countering an attack if we were to hit the stone back, but I don't really think so. Luigi logic is always performed on our turn to attack, meaning that we are on the offense. Gorumbla catching and throwing the stone is his form of defense, and us hitting the stone again is us continuing our assault. Even if we fail to hit the stone back, it's not like we take damage, so retaliation from a boss during a Luigi logic attack will not be counted as dodging. Since our defense is so high, we are able to defeat Gorumbla without needing to heal even once, and can return to Shipshape Island where we are introduced to side quests. Side quests can give us a lot of useful pieces of gear and items, so I will be completing as many of them as possible throughout our journey. Some of the most appealing items that we can get from side quests are beans. Beans are permanent stat upgrades and will be excellent to help reduce the need for grinding. I decided not to use any beans I get right away though, as I wanted to see just how long I could go without needing to use them. Our final island we need to connect before the Great Lighthouse is Floral Island, and it is once again an easy one. The enemies may be in larger hordes, but our new green shell attack helps make quick work of them. After Floral Island, I was free to head to the first Great Lighthouse Island, where I reached level 14 before fighting our second boss, Goblik. Goblik certainly does more than 1 HP of damage at times, but with the Cozieware giving me a 20% defense boost whenever I get hit, his attacks are pretty manageable. In the second phase of the fight, he does have an attack where he will eat one of the bros and restore some HP, but the HP he restores is pretty minimal and isn't an issue whatsoever. Goblik goes down relatively quickly, and we are free to move on to the Colorful Sea. Our first stop in the Colorful Sea is Desolate Island. The enemies here hit a bit harder, but nothing that's too overwhelming. We soon hit level 15 where I pick up defense up plus for both of the bros, making us even more tanky. At the end of Desolate Island, we fight against 10 of the Extension Corps. He doesn't really have any noteworthy attacks though, and goes down pretty easily. Once we defeat 10, we get introduced to Battle Plugs, and this is where things can get really interesting. There are plenty of defensive Battle Plugs that we can take advantage of in battle that with proper management can make us nearly invincible. All we gotta do is get through the tutorial for them and... Oh no. Yeah, so immediately the first battle plug that the game wants us to use is the easy peasy counters battle plug. This is a problem because the tutorial will not continue unless we counter at least one of 10's attacks. We can't kill 10 again since he has an infinite amount of HP during this tutorial. I tried just wasting a bunch of turns with healing and normal attacks to see if the game would just give up teaching me, but the game simply wouldn't move on unless I did what it wanted me to do, and counter an attack. So, unfortunately, it is not possible to beat Mario and Luigi Brothership without dodging. However, even if the game may not be beatable without dodging, that still leaves us with a question. What is the minimum? The run doesn't have to end here. There's still plenty of game left, and I want to see just what the minimum required dodges are. So, we go connect Desolate Island and move on. From sailing around the seas, we can come across Little Isle where there are some decently strong enemies we can fight to get stronger. I take a bit of time to grind up to level 18 before heading to Marigo Island. My little bit of grinding came into effect immediately as the enemies were back to dealing just 1 HP of damage with each hit. We finished Marigo Island with lightning speed and now need to make the decision on whether to send Luigi or Peach to Lotta Coins Island. I choose to send Peach as to not have Mario go into Lotta Coins alone. Upon reaching Lotta Coins Island, we can head to the gear shop and catch our first glance at the object of my unholy desires, the golden defense gloves. How the gloves work is that for every 2,000 coins you have, you gain a 1% defense buff for a maximum of a 30% defense boost with no drawbacks. Needless to say, this is a really good piece of gear that I want to get my hands on. But I'm just a wee bit short of being able to afford them, so we'll have to come back for them later. We can make it through the Lotta Coins building with no issues and make it to our next boss with Mega Snapdoor. I, however, am at level 20 at this point, so Snapdoor's attacks don't do a whole lot of damage. Mega Snapdoor goes down without even knocking one of the bros down to half HP, and with our victory, we get ourselves the Damage Dodge plug, which will be a very useful plug to us for the rest of our adventure, as it's a straight 20% damage reduction when equipped. After a lot of coins, we gain access to the It's Dory side quest, and this is a quest we absolutely want to finish. Upon finishing the quest, the Idol group will give us the Idol Scarf, a very useful piece of equipment for us. It gives us a 10% boost to our defense as well as a 20% boost to our HP. It does come at a 20% cost to our stash stat, but the large amount of extra bulk we'll gain from this gear is well worth the cost. Our next destination is All Sand Island, the home of the vicious shark bones. You really wanted to avoid these guys on a normal playthrough, but in this challenge we absolutely need to make sure we don't get into a fight with a single one. These things are level 40, and even with our defensive setup, they still easily one-shot both bros. And since this is a no-dodge challenge, we can't simply avoid being one-shot by dodging their attacks. Other than the anxiety-inducing shark bones, the rest of All Sand Island causes us no problems, and we are set to head on to the Second Great Lighthouse. During our trek through the Second Great Lighthouse, we reach level 22 and can select another rank up bonus. I choose to go for an extra gear slot since at this point, there isn't another defensive plus stat we can make use of, and we've gained access to more useful pieces of gear that we can take advantage of, like the Healthy Ring, which will make it so we won't need to worry about status effects as much. Sharp Cask is the boss of the Second Great Lighthouse, but with how high level we are, they aren't much of a problem at all. Other moves do have a chance of inflicting dizzy or trip onto the bros, but with my Healthy Ring and the sure-footed guard plug, I don't have to worry about it at all. With Sharp Cask defeated, we get our third power tap, light the Second Great Lighthouse, and move on to the Burning Sea. Nothing really of interest happens on Bulbfish Island, but once we get to Heat Freeze Island, we run into something that will definitely become a thorn in our side later in the game. Glom enemies. Anytime you're hit by a Glom enemy in this game, you have a chance to be hit with the Glom status. The Glom status prevents the bros from working together during battle. This means no combo moves and no bros attacks. The Glom status really restricts the amount of damage you can do in a turn, and with me not being able to dodge enemy attacks, it's very likely that when a Glom enemy attacks me, I will get hit with the status. You don't even have a guaranteed way to remove the status right now, as a refreshing herb only has a 50% chance to heal the Glom status. Thankfully, the Glom enemies are very scarce at this point in the game, so we don't really have to worry about it right now. We make it through all of Heat Freeze, and when given the choice to head to Scorchin or Slip and Glide Island, I choose to head to Scorchin first. Things go smoothly as usual, with the only thing of note being a forced fight between a Hammer, Fire, and Ice Bro. I felt this fight was worth bringing up because they attack a lot in succession and can hit you with a lot of scary status effects. I, of course, went in prepared for the fight, making sure my good plugs were charged up, but if my plugs weren't charged, I feel this could definitely have been a bit of a rough fight. We finish up at Scorchin Island and head on to Slip and Glide Island, where it is yet another easy time. Nothing to note here. After we finish Slip and Glide and start prepping the wedding though, if we stop by Make It's shop, she'll have a new quest for us to gather materials to make the HP Bros bangle. This is the main reason why we chose to have Make It build our hammers at the start of the game, as this is an exclusive piece of gear that only she can make. The HP Bros Bangle heals our HP by 5% of the damage that we deal with a Bros attack. And with how high the damage numbers get in this game, we can basically become invincible against regular enemies and can heal off most of the damage a boss does against us, which is why we'll be wearing it for the rest of the game. Once the wedding is finished, we can make our way to the Third Great Lighthouse and challenge Pipe Gunk. This is yet another easy boss for us since I'm at level 28 at this point, but if we weren't so high leveled, this fight could definitely have been a bit rough. Pipe Gunk isn't much of a threat in his normal form, but once he switches to his fire form, things get a little spicy. He starts hitting us with very powerful spread fire moves that even have a chance to lower our defense by 20%. Mario's Cozy-Wear DX was able to nullify his 20% debuff, but in just a few attacks, Luigi was already down to 58 HP, which is the lowest my HP has been in quite a while. However, once we were able to use Luigi logic to change the battlefield over to ice, the battle was basically over. Pipe Gunk doesn't deal nearly as much damage in his ice form as he did in his fire form. Once we take him out, we level up to level 29 and can once again pick a new rank up bonus. We're given 3 very nice options to choose from, but clearly Counter-Er is in our best interest in order to increase our counterattack damage. Nah, I'm just kidding ya. We absolutely want Iron Body, as now we take 25% less damage from all attacks, which is an absolutely massive boost to our bulk. We pick up our 4th power tap, light the 3rd Great Lighthouse, and move on to the Gulch Rock Sea, where we are immediately thrown overboard by Bowser. You know, the usual. Thankfully, we just so happen to land on Offadon Island, so we can reconnect it with Shipshape and learn that both Twisty and Heat Freeze Island have become disconnected and we need to go reconnect them. Awesome. I decided to head to Twisty Island first, and reconnecting this island was an absolute slog! There are 3 required fights on this island, and all of them are a horde of glommed enemies that immediately hit us with the glom status. As mentioned before, the glom status prevents us from doing a lot of damage, and that means we'll be taking a lot of hits since we can't kill the enemies fast. I had to heal so many times while on Twisty, making this easily the trickiest part of the run so far. I slowly managed to reconnect Twisty Island, and we headed to Heat Freeze. Thankfully on Heat Freeze, we didn't have to face swarm after swarm of glommed enemies, and we were back to having a smooth time. After we reconnected Heat Freeze, we're told our next destination is Way Away Island in order to find some ant berries for the people infected with glom. But before then, I had reached level 34 and figured now would be a good time to attempt our first optional boss in the game. So we make our way back to the 1st Great Lighthouse to take on Glom Goblik. Glom Goblik hits decently hard, and with him being a glom enemy, it's likely we'll get hit with the glom status, and we'll have to try to heal it off with an herb. I did have my auto herb plug fully charged before starting the fight, but it ran out very quickly at the start, so I thought we were about to be in it for the long haul. However, once I entered the 2nd stage of the fight, I somehow wasn't affected by glom a single time, despite Goblik chewing me up and trying to smack me around. Mario did end up getting rather low on HP, but the rest of the fight ended up being super easy. Onward to Way Away Island, which just so happens to be where Bowser's headquarters is. Cool. Bowser's castle is another easy time though, since we don't have to deal with any glommed enemies along our way. Just before entering the final room of the castle, the bros hit level 36, which allows us to choose a new rank up bonus just before fighting Bowser. There's lots of good options to pick, but I decided to go with Bros Pro for our rank up bonus because having our Bros moves deal more damage means that our HP Bros Bangle will heal us a bit more when we attack, helping with our survivability. Bowser is our next boss fight, and he certainly has some interesting tactics up his shell. He can cause both the trip and burn status effects, so we need to make sure to have the right plugs equipped. He can also use a sliding punch to remove one of the bros from the battle for a turn, as well as summon some of his minions to help deal even more damage to us. It might seem that I would just get overwhelmed with a barrage of strong attacks, but with how high level I am, Bowser's attacks end up being pretty manageable. Even when I got to a point where Mario was at less than half HP, my countdown to cure activated right when I had planned it to, and healed me up fully. Bowser was disposed of pretty quickly afterwards. Now that we have taken down Bowser, we can grab the ant berries we needed. Please, why can't I just grab a bunch extra for myself? And headed back to Shipshape to make our way to the last Grand Lighthouse. The last Great Lighthouse ended up being super easy to get through since it's basically an enemy gauntlet without there even being a boss at the end. So we go ahead and light the last Great Lighthouse, which points us towards Fortress Zaket. As we're exploring Fortress Zaket, we reach level 37 before taking on Glom Bowser. Glom Bowser might seem like he would have been a harder version of Bowser for this challenge, but if anything, it was actually easier. Sure, he can infect us with Glom now, but we have the auto ant berry plug at this point, so Glom isn't much of an issue anymore. Bowser no longer has his sliding punch to remove one of the bros from the battle, so as long as we continuously attack and stun Bowser, there isn't too much that he can do to us. Even his Ring of Glom is easily dealt with by performing Luigi logic correctly. Glom Bowser is defeated with ease, and we make our escape to Conductor Island. The fight against the Great Conductor is no problem, since his attacks don't do much damage at all, even without our damage dodge plug. We simply just have to take a couple extra turns to break each capsule. From the fight we reach level 39, and after connecting Conductor Island, I figure we're a high enough level to take on Glom Sharp Cask. Glom Sharp Cask has the same moveset as the original Sharp Cask, but now hits like a massive bag of bricks. One new addition to the fight, however, is that Sharp Cask will now put up a barrier whenever he is done attacking. This barrier has 2 charges, so we need to make sure to continuously use multi-hit attacks to break it. Because of Sharpcask's barrier lowering our damage output, I do need to take the time to heal now and then in order to stay in the fights, but nothing that wasn't manageable. Glom Sharpcask goes down without too much issue, and we head on to Jellyfish Island. An island that doesn't have a single fight on it. Well, this is certainly an anticlimactic final island. In fantastic news though, I have enough coins to afford 2 pairs of golden defense gloves. As I explained earlier, these gloves will give us a 30% defense buff with no drawbacks. So with them, we have become a near indestructible wall. I feel it's important that I should bring up the side quests again, as at this point in our adventure, we are now tanky enough to be able to head back to All Sand Island and take down some shark bones. We may not be tanky enough to survive too many attacks, but we can survive enough attacks in order to defeat the shark bones. This means that we can get ourselves the bone of a shark bone and complete the Fossil in the Bones side quest, making the quest completable without dodging. At the same time, we have gained access to the level 4 Monster Mania quest. For this quest, we need to defeat 7 Bob-ombs who have had all of their stats maxed out, meaning that we can't kill them with our attacks and they one-shot us with their attacks. In order to win, we need the Bob-ombs to blow themselves up, so we need to be able to survive their attacks somehow. We can't use a Boo Biscuit to avoid taking damage, since the item has been restricted for this fight. However, we still have one other option. Since I've been collecting every Sprite Bulb, I've gained access to the Protect Us badge, which mitigates all damage for 3 attacks. Pair that with the Charge Bank plug, and we can take 0 damage for 6 attacks. For the last Bob-omb, we can equip the Not Droppin' badge in order to survive its explosion with 1 HP. That leaves no Bob-omb standing, making us the victor. A simple strategy. I didn't realize that my Charge Bank plug wasn't fully charged though, so it would seem that my strategy was doomed to fail. Thankfully, the last Bob-omb blew up 1 turn after the 6th Bob-omb, so I was simply able to use a nut in order to bring myself above 1 HP so my Not Droppin' plug could activate again. The rest of the side quests in the game are very easy to complete without dodging, so with these 2 down, that only leaves 1 quest left, before all side quests have been beaten without dodging, but we'll be saving it for a bit later. We're now ready to head into Fortress Zocket once again, and as per usual, the enemies inside give us no trouble. Even when the bros get separated midway through, it's pretty easy to just avoid any enemies we see. If we do get into a fight, we can just run away with no punishment. We reach level 42 before we take on the Extension Corps in a boss fight. Their teamwork may be quite good, but their damage isn't anything to write home about. No matter what they threw at me, they were only dealing 1 damage per hit, even without the damage dodge plug. X likes to steal our battle plugs, but that's nothing good resource management can't get around. It would seem like we would meet our doom with our last ditch attack, but we simply have to eat a Boo Biscuit and we take 0 damage. It doesn't count as dodging either, since the bros are still clearly being hit. The Extension Corps goes down easily, and we are tasked with taking down Zocket next. Zocket definitely hits much harder than the Extension Corps does, and he has 1 trick up his sleeve that was a bit of a concern to me. When he ends up infecting one of the bros with Glom, he will take control over that brother and have him attack the other brother who was not infected. I thought I would have to counter the infected brother's assault in order to get him to return to normal, but after just 3 hits from Luigi here, he ends up dropping his hammer and curing himself. It was at this point that Zocket's fate was sealed. His swords attack did do a large amount of damage, but it wasn't anything that I couldn't heal off. We take down Zocket, and with his defeat, we gain the Glom Guard Plug, making it so we don't have to concern ourselves with Glom for the rest of the game, and level up to level 43 so we can select our final rank up bonuses. I choose to go with Casual Bros and Big Lucky. I chose Casual Bros so I wouldn't have to worry about my BP consumption for the last big fights of the game, and Big Lucky to hopefully be able to get even more healing from our HP Bros Bangle. After Reclusa awakens and we escape the fortress, we are tasked with traveling across the different islands in order to collect the bond energy from all the important people we've met on our journey. While we are trying to get Wilma's family's bond, we end up having to face Garumbla again since he has been infected with Glom. There really isn't anything to talk about with this fight though. He has all the same attacks, it's just he hits a bit harder now. One new thing included in the fight is that he will put up a barrier like Glom Sharpcask did, but it doesn't really affect the tide of the fight at all. We finish collecting everyone's bonds and reach level 45, but before we can head to the Soli Tree to finish the game, we still have one more side quest to finish. It's time to take on Glom Pipe Gunk. Pipe Gunk, like before, is absolutely ruthless once he is switched to his fire form. High damage spread moves while being able to lower our defense by 20% is no joke. He even deals a good amount of damage in his ice form now, making it so both of his forms deal great damage. However, unlike our first fight with Pipe Gunk, I have a lot more useful battle plugs I can take advantage of. Meaning that even with the large amounts of damage he deals, I can heal it all away in one turn with a max candy. Pipe Gunk goes down after just a few turns, and this means that every side quest in the game is completable without dodging, which is pretty cool. Time to head on to the Soli Tree and finish things off. The Soli Tree enemies give us no trouble whatsoever. They do deal a good amount of damage, but with our ultimate bros attacks, the Max Mix Vortex and the Conductor Connector, we can deal so much spread damage that we can heal back a ridiculous amount of HP. It's not even fair. We can easily breeze through the entirety of the Soli Tree and make it to the final fight with Reclusa. I make sure to double check my gear and items before heading in, and keep in mind, I have yet to use a single bean, so if I do lose in the final, I can use all of the beans I've collected before having to grind for levels. The final fight begins with us chasing Reclusa down on a giant plug so we can stun and attack him. I'm not counting moving in this chase segment as dodging, since we don't take damage of our hit, and we're the ones doing the chasing. Reclusa never even directly attacks us during this phase of the fight, so we can easily defeat him and level up to level 48. This is the level we will be taking on the rest of the fight with. The second phase of the fight involves us having to free Snowlet from one of the Doom Blooms. Weeping Reclusa will attack us alongside the Doom Blooms, but despite the flashy and dramatic attacks, we don't end up suffering too much damage. Once we free Snowlet, Luigi uses his logic to have Snowlet summon the giant plug so we can head up and directly confront Weeping Reclusa. Since we are on the offense with our Luigi logic attack, our movement during this segment also doesn't count as dodging. Once we enter inside Weeping Reclusa, the real fight can begin with the Weeping Core. The Weeping Core's attacks are dangerous, especially since one of them can lower our defense by 30%. Even my bros moves aren't enough to heal off all the damage this thing does to us, so I have to take the time to heal now and then during this phase. I made sure to save my really good plugs for the final phases with Reclusa though, since I knew this guy was going to be a lot of trouble. Reclusa attacks us over and over with really strong attacks. Thanks to my Protectus though, we can make it to the final phase without suffering any damage. I unfortunately made a mistake with my planning though, and thought I would be able to take out Reclusa with one last Max Mix Vortex. I end up just barely not KOing him, and he manages to take down Mario due to me not equipping my damage dodge plug. I see that Reclusa has just a sliver of HP left though, and instead of just playing it safe and reviving Mario, I decide to go all in with a plug boosted jump attack on Luigi's turn. The attack KOs Reclusa, and that means that our challenge is now complete. Unfortunately, our challenge had ended in failure all the way back at the beginning of the Colorful Sea. But for the rest of the game, we didn't have to dodge a single time. This means that Mario and Luigi Brothership can be completed with only one dodge, which is still pretty good. The challenge overall ended up being pretty easy. We didn't have to use any of our beans, and none of the bosses gave us much of an issue. But I feel like that's mostly due to my playstyle of fighting every single enemy I come across. If we weren't so high leveled throughout the game, there were definitely a few bosses that could have been a bit of an obstacle for us. This challenge was still a lot of fun though, as I had never played a Mario and Luigi game in this way before. So I would certainly try out the challenge yourself, and not just this game, but the other Mario and Luigi games as well. That's going to be it for this video though. If you enjoyed it, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Any support means a lot to me. And if you want to see more challenge videos like this, be sure to let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching.